You have to know your audience's currency. My very first year teaching, we're trying to figure out like what will motivate him, because there were trips and treats and nothing we were coming up would motivate him. Until one day, his mom made him wear loafers to school instead of sneakers. And we realized that sneakers was the currency that was going to motivate him.
So he literally just had to step into the shoes of a successful...
And wear them to school.
And wear them to school.
Science is truly the best subject because there is something for everyone. You love reading, there's reading in science. You love math, there's math in science. You love hands-on, there's hands-on. There is an entry point for every student. The first time I did not get a role that I really wanted. Someone who I knew got that role instead. What I learned from that is a role is what you do. It's not who you are. And you always have the opportunity to be who you are. And like, you should put yourselves in the position where that is valued the most.
Are you concerned with where students are turning to their resources to learn from?
You mean like the fact that ChatGPT has probably written most?
Dr. Harper, let's talk about education.
My favorite topic.
Educate me on what you think the state of education is in the country at the moment. How is it valued?
You know, education in this country has ebbed and flowed in terms of how people truly not only appreciate it or value it, but also understand it. I think that currently education is seen, it's sort of been a catch-all for lots of the things, the social issues that we are trying to reckon with at this time. And so people see it as it should be doing more, and yet it's not doing enough. People see it as the fix-all or the catch-all, and yet there's not a ton of funding for it. I think in terms of the value, though, people recognize that education is our future, because you cannot do or accomplish what you cannot imagine. You cannot do or accomplish what you cannot see. And education it's like both a mirror to yourself, but also a window into all the possibilities that are out there.
Wow. I think education, to your point, it has ebbed and flowed, especially with the emergence of technology. It's the value of it.
Yes.
You see the pros and cons, let's just say, of communication, of how it's flowed. I had this conversation with my 16-year-old niece when she was telling me something via text, and she was writing to me in abbreviations. And I'm like, we don't do that. Because I'm like, when you apply for a job, we need to learn how to speak professionally. I was just speaking to my team before about communication, because when you represent yourself and you're selling yourself to a company or trying to get a job, you are potentially representing that company to their customers. So communication and language and English, which were a former English teacher,
yes,
it's very important. So tell me about the time that you were teaching English and science in the Bronx, and what's a moment for you that you had in teaching that kind of shapes you today still?
Oh my goodness. I will never forget my very first year teaching. His name is Dennis. And
was he a menace?
We will never call his dean a menace. But I will say he was very curious about lots of things that were not English, which is what I was teaching at the time. And one of the things, worked really closely with his family, his mom in particular. And one of the things Dennis taught me is you have to know your audience's currency. So you ask if he was, a menace or he loved to get into things. That's how I'll say it.
Okay.
And so helping him to sort of change that habit, adjust it, adapt it to be something that was more successful in school. We were trying to figure out what will motivate him, because there were trips and treats and stickers, nothing we were coming up with would motivate him, until one day his mom made him wear loafers to school instead of sneakers. And we realized that him getting the opportunity to wear his favorite sneakers was the currency that was going to motivate him to try the things we wanted him to try, pay attention the way we wanted him to pay attention. And so we were able to leverage that to help him become more successful in the classroom. And so I always take from dentists that if you know your audience's currency, you can connect with them.
That's amazing. So he literally just had to step into the shoes of a successful.
And wear them to school. You know, your outfit in middle school, which is what I was teaching, your outfit matters.
Okay.
So,
okay. I wish I had the same kind of care as dentists in middle school. Perhaps we had uniforms and we didn't really care, but okay, that's go dentists. I really love that. Another thing I have to ask you, Dr. Harper, is as a teacher, teachers have an amazing knack for remembering names. And I think that is such a great skill to have outside of your profession too. Why are you so good at it? Like, tell me, what is that like the first thing you learn in when you get your education degree? Like, learn your students' names. Like, what's the memory exercise that you do?
I can tell you a memory exercise I will do. And I will tell you the first thing you learn when you are thinking about becoming a teacher, as I've done teacher training as well, is like, if the teacher knows your name on the first day, that could be a problem. My trick is an association. So like Ginni with the triangle dress, or person with the hair, or person with the like sweater. It's hard when you wear uniforms. It's much, much harder than if students have like more autonomy over their hair, their clothes, their dress. What you can do. I was always known for my glasses, and I always had a pair of shoes that I wore on the first day that had like a little mirror on the front, and I would hold my foot up and tell students like, I can see you, so know my name because I will like look for you with my shoe. And they believed me.
The know my name thing. I had a teacher in 10th grade. I remember she started like halfway through the year. There was like 31 of us. She learned all our names within like a week. I was like, yo, she's good. One of us stumbled on her name and she's like, listen, there's one of me and 31 of you. There's no excuse. And I was like, damn, good point. And you support her in that. You co-sign on that.
100% I co-sign. 100% I co-sign.
Now I have to talk to you about science because that was a subject that I did not pay attention in. Like my dreams of being a doctor were shattered in 8th grade because you kind of need science to be a doctor, right? You would not want me operating on you. How do you make the students just be attentive? Because attention is what marketing companies are trying to compete for. You guys have to compete for this in the classroom every single day.
Yes.
With kids.
With kids.
How do you do it?
And kids are very tough.
Yeah.
Science is truly, and I was an English teacher first, so I can say this with certainty in my heart. Science is truly the best subject because there is something for everyone in science. You love reading, there's reading in science. You love math, there's math in science. You love hands-on, there's hands-on. If you're getting good science, you know, like there is an entry point for every student. And so when you're thinking about the marketing of it and how we are sort of capturing people, and I think it's actually the same in life in general, it's that you have to really know what you're talking about in order to be able to find that entry point for every person.
Oh, fire alarm.
This is exactly like teaching in a school.
Okay, so you have to find how to keep their attention. Yeah.
You have to find an entry point, right? Like, and so you need multiple entry points in every lesson. And I would say for marketers, that's what they're thinking about. In a commercial, you're going to have multiple entry points, multiple audiences, or like when you're doing some kind of campaign, you know, where I work now, we're trying to make students want to join our program. We have to have many ways for them to be able to feel engaged. And I think that I learned that teaching science.
I'm wondering too, after kids graduate from high school and they go into the world, what do you think is the gap that they can sometimes find themselves in? Because a lot of people say to me the gap, even on my experience too, the gap from high school to college was like, oh, this is different. I don't have to be polite to everybody. Not that I was not polite, but like, because you see students every day. Like, what do you think the gap is? Like some of the things that you think post-secondary life doesn't prepare you for?
I think the gap between high school and post-secondary, whether that's college or other programs, one of the biggest ones is time task management. That when you are in secondary school, someone is, there is this bell schedule. You are going from class to class. Someone is telling you when to do this. You're going to eat lunch. You're going to, you're going to have X, Y amount of homework, or sorry, talking in science, but you're going to have, a certain amount of this or a certain amount of that. When you go into the post-secondary program, like no one's going to make you study. No one's going to tell you when your classes should be. Maybe you want to go to classes 2 days a week and have 3 days free. Maybe you want a little bit of class every day. Like you get to make those choices, but we're so unaccustomed to that level of independence and autonomy that I think it can be really hard. And then I think the other big gap is, and it's not true for all students, but Another big gap is the level of responsibility, like personal responsibility and personal accountability that come with it. Like in high school or in secondary school, I feel like if you're struggling, someone is going to notice, someone's going to reach out. That's not true in post-secondary, right? Like, unfortunately, I would say oftentimes folks see themselves or programs see themselves as kind of a weeding out. We want the best to thrive and move forward because they're going to be representing us, because they're going to be doing this thing. And so like, if you're struggling and you don't advocate for yourself, you're kind of left to flounder a little bit. And I think that's the beauty of the program I'm working with now. It's what attracted me to this program. And I think the other gap is that this is controversial, could be, would be that in high school, it's expected and encouraged to try a little bit of everything. And I think that oftentimes people can get into the post-secondary world. I know I was myself one of these students, and I actually didn't have, like I had an end goal, but I had no idea what I needed to do, the path I needed to take to get there. And like the end goal that I started with is so far from the end goal of where I am now that like navigating those transitions, you don't really have the time, the resources, the money to be able to just like a little here and a little there, and that's very hard. It's a much different mindset. And so now I think students get to become more intentional with the right supports, like proactive supports, so that doesn't happen to them.
I want to kind of talk about the students. So I went to a Catholic all girls school. It was a private school for my secondary education. Thanks, Mum. So we rarely found students there that, teachers didn't expect them to go far because discipline was there. There was a standard. There was an expectation that you had there. So I'm wondering, like, even nowadays, when we are met with someone, even in management of people in the workforce, what's one strategy a caring adult or a caring manager can use to change that narrative?
It is a thing that hurts my heart the most as truly like an educator in my heart, for us to hold low expectations of students. And so what I would say is the thing that can adjust that, because it's really a reframe on the adult's part. It has nothing to do with the student. It is the adult mindset. Is truly approaching it with a curiosity, like, who are you? What is it that you want to do? Every person is good at something. Do I know the thing you're good at? Do I help you figure out how to use that in all of these different settings? And also, like, this is the pitfall that I think adults fall into. It's like, oh yeah, well, I asked them twice. It's like, but did you really listen to the answer? Right? Like that deep listening is paired with curiosity is how I think we come to realize that we can shift our perspective on how a student presents, what a student excels at, and then how that sets them up for success in the future.
And you mentioned a network of caring adults is something that is key to that. Can you talk about what that actually looks like in action and how can someone be a part of one?
I always like to start with my parents as the foundation of my network of caring adults. But when you talk about like, what does it mean and how do you become a part of one? I think there are a couple of ways you can do that. You really do have to be willing to listen to what young people are saying. We have, the generations have changed. The generations have had different focal points. And so really understanding what they are going through and their experience, particularly now, given that the world has experienced something we have not experienced in hundreds of years, together. I would say you have to try to connect to them. What are the ways in which you can listen to what they're saying and then connect them to something that you have experienced? Because young people are looking for a tether, a way to like feel part of something larger than themselves. And then I think you can explore what those like connections mean, but you have to do it consistently. That's the kicker. So I think that's what it looks like in action. In terms of how do you get there? I mean, I always say start at home, right? Like start with your own kids, your own families. I know we shared this story about your niece, like, are you doing it there? Are you doing it with their friends? Are you putting yourselves in the position to be a consistent player in someone's life where they might want to hear your opinion or share something with you? And that's how you do it. And of course you can volunteer at one goal, but
you've worked in pretty high stakes leadership roles, Philly, New York City, Camden. Yeah. What's been your biggest personal or professional setback and how did it kind of shape your leadership style?
What did they say? It's not a setback and it's an opportunity for a comeback. I think I would say that, there's so many setbacks.
Yeah. Like this fire alarm.
Also, this is one of the questions I do not have an answer to. I mean, because it's like, how do you know which is the biggest? They all shape you in a way. I would say a setback that sticks with me consistently, though probably not the biggest, is the first time I did not get a role that I really wanted. And someone who I knew got that role instead. And so I think what I learned from that is a role is what you do. It's not who you are. And that is true for work is what you do. It's not who you are. And you always have the opportunity to be who you are. And you should put yourselves in the position where that is valued the most. That is what I would say I have learned and carried from it. But I mean, if you're talking about setbacks, there's lots of other setbacks. So we could go down that road. But I think that's the one that sticks with me for how I show up now, which is trying to be my authentic self as much as possible.
Is there any particular piece of research that you've done that you're obsessed with right now that you think could change the way that we think about education in the next 5 years?
Right now, I work on the post-secondary, the sort of after graduation side of education. And most of my time in my career has been spent on the that, right? K-12 portion of education. And I would say there are kind of two things that I'm a little bit obsessed with. One, you talked a little bit about this in the beginning, is technology and the impact of technology, because I was talking to a colleague of mine and he was like, there are so many sort of data analyst jobs that exist now that 20 years ago did not exist. So the students who we are teaching now in K-12, half of the jobs they're going to be going for literally do not exist at this time. So how do we teach students how to leverage technology in a way that sets them up for the future? So that's what I would say on that side. And then I think really in terms of my current work, the thing that I'm most obsessed with is getting rid of this binary about college or career, because everything is a career trajectory. You don't go to college just to hang around, right? You're going to college for purpose. And so that is the thing that I'm obsessed with. How do we get a both and narrative of some people are going straight to career and some people are taking a different pathway, a college, route pathway towards a career. But everyone wants a life-sustaining wage. Everyone wants to be able to make choices in their life and feel empowered. So what do we need to do? How do we need to change what's happening now in order to make that true for all students?
I love how you said to not polarize those two terms, college or career, because social media, and I am guilty of consuming this myself too. When I started my entrepreneurial career, I'm like, did I really have to go to university for 3 years? But to your point, it was a decision I made because I knew it would get me closer to the career that I wanted. And that was the path that I chose to take to get to my career. But there is debate on social media, and entrepreneurs do pioneer this a lot, saying, well, I hired people straight out of high school, or I probably in my company, I can apply for an entry job with this level of education. And there is this kind of polarity that is, they kind of pit against each other, right? It's well, if you go to college, you don't need to do that anymore. But if you go this way, so how do we bridge that gap?
I would be rich if I knew the answer to that. And I would say, I think there are lots of intermediary steps we can take. The first is we truly have to do a little bit better job understanding long-term outcomes of college and career, because a lot of programs that we're talking about, you're looking at growth trajectory. You are an entrepreneur. You have an entrepreneurial career. That is actually you're not an entrepreneur as a job. That is a long, winding pathway for what you want to do. And I think our sort of data and understanding of where those pathways lead is very limited, particularly on the straight to career side. Mm-hmm. There's lots of research about college and all of these things. And that is still I think the predominant pathway for some jobs, for some students. And I think what we need to do is be realizing it's hot here in New York City where we are. Everyone needs air conditioning. Do you need to go to college, or would an HVAC credential help you better to get to do that? If what you care about, truly your aspiration, is to help people and make sure they have comfortable conditions. We really have to start with the need, the want of the student, like know them, know their dreams. And then I think we can make better decisions about the pathway to get there.
Are you concerned with where students are turning to their resources to learn from?
You mean like the fact that ChatGPT has probably written most?
Yeah. And also getting their information from like social media, which is not always curated or quarantined, for want of a better word.
Not always vetted.
Not always vetted.
Does that concern me 100%? I mean, I think that concerns me. And I think the onus of changing that should not be on our young people. The onus really needs to be on the fact that we need better systems for understanding that, because it used to be that if you wanted to research something, you could go to, every source has a bias, like if you science. So yes, I know that. But you used to be able to find at least more objective information on multiple sides. Like you want to see multiple sides before you form your own opinion. And right now, adults, our society is so polarized in so many ways about every topic that you can't find that sort of middle ground. You can hear this or you can hear that. And then it's just bang, bang, bang. Like they said this and they said that. And you have to like, you're left to flounder, as opposed to they said this and here's the flip side of that. Or here's this thing we believe and here's the alternative perspective. Like people aren't really in dialogue anymore. They're more in like soapbox mode, sharing their opinion. And I think that's the real challenge.
And the challenge too with that is there's no container now to have healthy debate, because you mentioned deep listening. People don't deep listen anymore. It's just soapbox. That's soapbox. Right. And then now we're at a place where it's like, I don't know how to communicate in this container of being uncomfortable with disagreeing with you, so I'm just going to shut you down or turn away. That's scary for me too.
The beauty of that is that we teach people to shut down, to withdraw, to do that. And if we teach them to do that, we can also teach them not to do that. And so education, and I'm not even just talking about schooling, I'm talking about education in your family, education in your home, education in your social organizations. Like we can also teach people to be open. And I think that's what we really need to do.
Yeah, and get uncomfortable, really, right? Because some of these conversations aren't very comfortable to have.
Right. And like, you know, I'm a middle child, so I have been ganged up on my entire life. And you have to sort of be able to figure out how to navigate with someone who has a different opinion from you. And a different opinion also doesn't mean wrong, and it also doesn't mean bad. And I think that's what we have to teach young people.
So Dr. Harper, I want to talk a little bit about One Goal and the work that you've been doing. What is the legacy that you hope to leave with One Goal and the next generation of leaders and learners?
One Goal has transitioned over its history, almost 2 decades. I would say it used to be a college access organization, and now I think we are a post-secondary pathway organization and really an advising organization. The legacy that I want to leave here at One Goal in New York is really that it's not a binary. It's not college or career. And I want us to like actively seek out and push and understand the resources to help students have access to whatever their true north is, whatever their aspirations are, not just what they can afford, not just what we know about currently, but like do the work, set the foundations that whatever you want, it is our job to help you achieve that.
Wow. What inspires you about this work? Is there a moment that you have seen one of your colleagues and you're like, hey, I really love what I'm doing? Like, I know teachers have these moments in the classroom, but do you have these moments as well?
Yes. Just 2 weeks ago, a student who I met on my very first classroom visit with One Goal, her name is Nyreen. She was back and she was talking to a group of fellows and supporters of One Goal. And what she said to me is, she said, I hit a roadblock, and instead of getting discouraged, I reached out to someone. So one, she had a network that she could reach out to. And then she said, and I found 2 to 3 options that I wanted to explore, and I chose the one that felt right for me. And I'm sitting here thinking, man, that's all we want for you. We want you to try something and it doesn't work out the way you expected it to, and then pivot and feel good about the pivot because you know at the foundation who you are and what you want. And that pivot is still going to get you there. And I looked at Nyreen and I was just like, wow, you are why I do this work.
Yeah, that was a very level-headed response.
I mean, she's a very mature young lady, way more mature than I was at her age and maybe even now, But also I would say, I mentioned in my own story that I was kind of all over the place in post-secondary. I would say the power of One Goal is that she really had an educator who kind of helped her figure out. She always knew she wanted to go to college. That's like a phrase that people use, but what did she want to explore? What did she want to do? And she already knew multiple pathways to get there. So she wasn't kind of stuck. And that is really inspiring that having a path or knowing a goal doesn't mean that you don't get to explore and you don't get to try and you don't get to change your roads. And I don't think I really fully understood that at the core until she said what she said to me.
I want to kind of talk about the post-secondary pathway that you really have ingrained in One Goal. For parents listening and even guardians or parental figures or aunts like myself, my niece is she'll be graduating high school at the end of next year. So she'll be like, I got this in my English, what should I do? Or I think she's going down a law path, but I'm wondering.
I started there. You can still change. Don't worry.
That's good to know. That was one of my questions. But for parents listening, for guardians, what's one question or what's a conversation starter that they should be having with a child who's right now thinking about post-secondary readiness?
It sounds funny to say this of where to start, but I think the true question is who are you? Because most parents, most caring adults will say that the young person they see or hear about at school does not match necessarily the person that they experience at home.
Yeah.
And so trying to figure out that bridge of who are you? What do you like? What do you love? Let's start there, because in order to stick through any of these pathways, because we haven't talked that much about persisting in the pathway or completing a pathway. We're talking a lot about getting there. But in order to actually do the thing you set out to do, you have to love it. And it has to sort of be a part of who you are and the impact you want to have on the world. And I think that they can start there. What is it that you want to do? Because maybe what you want to do doesn't align with what I thought for you or what I hoped for you, honestly, in some cases. I will love my parents. They are very supportive. I don't think they grew up thinking we want our daughter to be a teacher, right? They had other dreams for me. And so when we talked about the impact that I wanted to have of I want to be in service. I want to be helping people. There are lots of jobs that do that. And I landed on education through lots of conversations and through lots of, twists and turns, I will say, in my own story. And so that's where you have to start, because if you don't know that, you are pushing an agenda versus helping to encourage on a pathway.
And you see more success rate when it comes from a place of, I actually love doing this and my parents all want me to do this.
I mean, this is probably true for you when you talked about being in university. I'm on this pathway and I love this, but guess what? I have changed. I've had an experience that has been seminal to who I am, foundational. And I don't want that for myself anymore. And I think that's the other piece that I think caring adults need to be paying attention to, which is just because a student starts one way doesn't mean they have to stay that way. We have to allow for growth and change. And that is very hard for us adults.
Absolutely. And I think it's no, I know better. You should do this. No, I totally hear you on that. We have talked a lot about how we get into the post-secondary pathway. So once you get there, say, I love what I do, student loves what they do. What is the next step to continue one foot in front of the other?
This is actually why I came to One Goal from the work that I was doing before. Many of the programs, many of the supports that young people get in secondary and high school is to get them to something. We're not always thinking about getting them through that thing. And so the fact that One Goal gives an extra year of support once you graduate, we stay with you in that first year of transition.
Yeah.
I think that is the thing that we really need, which is students need help navigating. These are new systems, new structures. We talked about new experiences. Maybe you're doing your finances for the first time. Maybe you're, traveling somewhere for the first time, away from home, away from family, getting connected to the right supports, the people and the structures is really, really important. And I think that's what we don't take advantage of. Let's just talk college in particular. How many students are going to office hours? We should be doing that every time. Now let's think about on a career trajectory, a trade. How many had an apprenticeship over the summer or an internship where they shadowed a mechanic or shadowed, someone who was doing construction to know this is the thing I want to do? Like, what is the exposure? What are the experiences? And how do we then build that up for students? That's how you persist. You get to see the full picture of what that pathway is trying to show you.
So once you're there, you get that kind of collaborative environment and that support system, which is super important for life too. Is it, especially now with the hybrid work situation? Like, I've always worked remotely since starting my entrepreneurial career, but now I realize too, I'm like, I miss being in that environment. Like my team are remote.
That's right.
Yeah, and that community element is so important. So on this post-secondary pathway, like what is kind of the goal to graduate from this pathway? Like, what is the next step?
Everyone's goal is different, many paths, one goal. Yeah. The one goal is not our goal. It's whatever your goal is for yourself. So I think it's kind of hard to say what the next thing is, but I think what we can do to support that next thing is make sure you have a network that feels supportive, because you could have a network that drags you down too. Mm-hmm. So make sure you have a supportive network. Yeah. Make sure you understand the systems and the structures and you can speak the language of whatever the pathway is that you're in. And then also that you have chosen something that you feel you can truly like navigate. Can you continue to afford it? Can you continue to, does it continue to meet your needs? Do you have the, sort of completion? Do you have the study groups? So these, all of these things in place to really push yourself through. And I think that's the next step, which is because those are also the things, by the way, study groups or mentors are the people who connect you to your first job. They're the people who put you in contact with someone to do the thing. I was just talking with one of our corporate partners, and they were saying that 85% of positions are filled through people's networks. That is astronomical. Yeah. And so when you really think about what the next step is, it's about not just colliding on these pathways, but truly like building relationships and building connections that you can then leverage for the next thing.
What I really love about what you've shared, Dr. Harper, is one goals formula, like your process of the one goal for the person, what they love, what they're doing. Sometimes that changes, but the one goal is whatever the goal is. I mean, I think this has potential to be in organizations, not just in post-secondary pathways, because I think it's important with organizations, people change. Like, I've had the same people for 7 years. They've gotten married, bought houses, had kids. Their goals change. Like, their goal to be like, I want to work as many hours as I possibly can starting in year 1 is going to be very different in year 7 when they have 2 kids, a husband, a mortgage. It's going to be different. But that process that you have, that kind of going back to, okay, that is great human resources, I think.
I think that's right. And I would say, or I would just add to that like, that's something I didn't have or know.
Yeah.
It's like something I didn't have or know.
Exactly.
And so like part of the reason I'm attracted and like what we were talking a little bit about legacy or what you want my impact, I want my impact to be, at one goal. And I think that's it, that like, we're not just building for post-secondary, we're building for life. These are skills you're going to have to continually come back to that are transferable across all contexts. And like, that feels even more impactful than just like helping you get to a pathway and finishing that pathway.
Alaina, when you mentioned that when you were talking to your parents about this was a career pathway you wanted, did you ever think that you would be here at One Goal making the impact that you are? Were you thinking it was going to be this kind of impact, or has it just blown your mind? Wow.
Never. I mean, first of all, I think that my best job was being a classroom teacher. To understand yourself and to know, I 100% believe I could not be doing that at this time. So even though that was what I think my best job, I try to sort of think of my own impact and career as like the intersection of 3 things. What I love, teaching, education, what I'm good at, teaching, education, and what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I really reckoned, about, I would say almost 10 years ago with, maybe even more than that, with, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, I didn't feel that sort of drive and that had been in me, that fire, that flame that had been in me. It wasn't as strong anymore. And so I had to like really assess, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And I don't think it was. And so I went back to try to do some other things. And I've done a couple different things since then, all education adjacent, because that is the core of who I am. But I think that's just a testament to the power of something like One Goal or our life trajectories in general, which is like, if you know the core, there are many ways to affect that core. And that's what I continue to try to do now.
I love the 3 questions that you asked. What do I love? What am I doing? And what am I supposed to be doing? So we could actually ask that as a check-in with ourselves, honestly, in our career pathways too. Right. Dr. Harper, what's coming up for One Goal? What can we expect from you guys?
So here in New York, One Goal has just celebrated our 10th anniversary of serving students. So that is an amazing accomplishment that we are very proud of. And we, of course, will continue to grow our impact in terms of serving students in our traditional sort of classroom program model. But we talked a lot about systems and structures. And I think one of the things we have realized is that it's also important to be accessing and influencing the systems level of the work. And so we are expanding to be thinking about how do we help more adults in more communities that we serve be able to have the kind of deep curiosity and deep listening conversations with students that we've been talking about that we do in our classroom model. So we're not only working in schools directly with students in the classroom, but also thinking about the systems level. And so we're probably coming to a place near you, I don't know.
Wow. Do you plan to expand into every place in America?
Ma'am, no.
You don't want to do that. You're like, no.
I don't know. I mean, maybe, right? If every place needs it. I think what we plan to do is to try to impact as many young people as possible, because it doesn't have to be One Goal, right? Like you might get those same supports from your aunt or, your teacher or your parents or your grandparent or a family friend. But we want every student to have access to a conversation, a series of conversations where they can truly ascertain, who am I? What is it that I want for myself? What are the myriad ways to get there? And then which of those ways feels right for me?
You're teaching a very important skill set there of self-awareness.
Yes.
Which I think is really skated over. It's like, this is who you are. It's like, really? Okay. But then you don't really know, right? Until you get
and you don't re-examine, which, I mean, think about careers. Like think as an adult, think about that. How often are we on a path?
Yeah.
And we just stay on that path because that's what we're used to. And I think young people, they hold the power of possibility. And that is amazing.
That is amazing. Gosh, I feel so inspired now to go and do something. Dr. Harper, is there anything else you'd like to share about One Goal that we haven't covered today?
If I could leave one thing with anyone who is listening, the average student only gets to talk about their post-secondary aspirations, what they will do after high school, for 38 minutes total. If I could leave one thing, I would say, find some young person, start middle school, early high school, doesn't matter when, but ask them, who are you? What do you want? How do you think I can help you get there? That's where the network of caring adults starts. That's where the nexus of the self-reflection starts. And that's where students really get to start thinking about who they are and what they want to be and the impact they want to have.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I think students, adults, anybody could take some notes there. I certainly have, and I'm going to apply this next week in my meetings. Thank you so much, Dr. Harper.
Yeah, it was great.